Begin Self-Publishing, episode number 49. Was I wrong about fiction book content marketing?
Interested in self-publishing but don't know where to start? Want to get your book onto Amazon? Want to hold your paperback book in your hands? Learn how on the Begin Self-Publishing podcast with your host, Tim Lewis.
I've recently started to wonder if my view that content marketing doesn't work for marketing fiction books is actually wrong. I've never tried it. I thought about it, but decided against it at the time. I'm sure there are a few of you wondering what the hell I mean by content marketing. Well, put simply, content marketing, in its modern sense, is using regular pieces of content, such as a blog or a podcast, or maybe even a video channel on YouTube, as a way of building up an audience so that you can then sell a product. Of course, there are lots of people who do blogging and podcasting just because they enjoy the subject matter and they aren't necessarily trying to sell anything. But in the strictest sense, content marketing is about trying to sell a product to an audience that you built up over time by using something like a blog or a podcast to attract them to your content. Now, you could argue that this show itself is an example of content marketing, even though I haven't really got anything in the way to sell in terms of self-publishing materials. I hope to get a training course set up in the future, but that's basically one of the things that you can use content marketing for, is to sell a product. The great advantage of content marketing over what you would call traditional marketing is it's usually a lot considerably cheaper. You're not having to pay for adverts or other ways to attract people to your website. People will just gradually, over time, go to your website because they hear about the great content you put in there. Well, that's the idea anyway. For non-fiction books, it's usually very easy to do this, as most people have a specific set of questions or problems that they want answered. And you can just create that content or your blog or your podcast. So, for example, people looking to work out how to take a Scrivener file and produce a paperback book might find my episode on that, and that would be very useful for them. The great problem with marketing fiction, however, is that there aren't usually those kind of questions. Some people have a view of content marketing as a kind of one-off relationship. We go back with my example about this show and saying that if I set up all the keywords from my article about formatting a Scrivener document, create space Word file, and spend lots of time on all the SEO, which is what's called search engine optimization, making sure all the keywords are right so that Google picks it up. That is the purpose of content marketing. There isn't really any long-term relationship. You're just trying to get people in by putting out all of these little hooks out into the ocean and then pulling people in. But I don't really agree with that idea of content marketing. I don't think it's an extension of search engine optimization or some kind of you lure people in and then you try and upsell them everything. I don't think that's the right way to think about content marketing. I must admit, in the past, I've thought about it in that way as well, which is one of the reasons why I didn't think that it really works for selling fiction books. Because however great your book is, people are not going to be searching for the answers to questions about characters in your book or things like that. They may be searching for, say, books with purple vampires, but there's so few people who would be doing that kind of thing that it's very hard to actually get any traction for this single one-off post idea. Some people may search for things like best fantasy books, but those keywords are going to be so popular that it's going to be almost impossible to rank for them with any content you create. But since I've been doing this show, I've seen that actually the real power of content marketing is not on these hero articles or things where people will suddenly go viral on one post. It's on the actual long-term consistency of the actual show. So really what you're looking for is not these massive one-off posts where you get thousands of people coming. I mean, obviously that's going to be good for your blog or podcast if you do that. But the real key to content marketing is building up a loyal following who are looking forward to your content every week. Now, hopefully some of you look forward to this show every week. By regularly producing good quality content, you can get a group of people who are much more likely to buy or at least try your book or whatever product you're trying to sell via your blog or podcast. Another issue with fiction is that, unlike non-fiction, you can't just take content from your book and have that as recycled articles on your blog or podcast. I know people have tried giving away free chapters and short stories, and I suppose that approach could work, but do you really want to be writing a separate short story based on your book every week? Seems like quite a lot more work than just doing a general non-fiction blog. Most people who haven't read your book aren't necessarily going to care less about the characters in the book or anything to do with the plot line. They're probably not even going to have the time to read any short story that you might put onto your blog. This is very different from non-fiction, where the content of your book can usually be recycled in a watered down form onto your blog as a way of attracting people in, and then you can sell them your book on the back of wanting to know more. So how do we solve this problem with fiction content marketing? Well, the more I thought about it, the more I thought that actually you can do fiction content marketing. Now, I've got to say that my ideas on this are theoretical because I haven't tried doing this. When I was thinking about a podcast to start, I did this because I find self-publishing interesting. I thought it'd be useful, and I thought I could also potentially sell higher value products later on. But actually, in some ways, I wish that I'd started like a blog about time travel or about fantasy films or something along those lines. Because then I think I would actually be able to sell many more of my books. So I'm going to give you some advice that I think could help if you do try and start a blog or podcast or a video series to try and help sell your fiction books. First piece of advice is I'd try and narrow down the subject matter to an aspect of your genre that you write in and an area that you know something about and you feel excited about. This doesn't mean that you have to just do a blog about books in your area or anything like that. It can be about films, or it can be just about the subject matter of your area. For example, the top 10 werewolves in fiction or something along those lines. Well, something along the line of book reviews is going to be good content for getting readers onto your site. Quite a lot of work doing a book review. So you might want to, if you do want to go down that route, I think you need to find some other pieces of content to write about in the meantime. There's nothing to stop you, of course, from doing a monthly blog or something along those lines, as long as you're consistent with your content. My second piece of advice is something I see a lot of people doing, which is don't create a content just about writing. Unless your book is about writing, then all you're going to end up with is lots of writers visiting your site who may or may not be interested in your genre, some of who may have their own ideas about what a great book is. If you are desperate to do a writing blog, then at least try and keep it based on your genre so that you can then start building up relationships with other writers in the same genre for cross-promotional purposes. Third piece of advice is keep going. There will be an awful lot of slogging effort involved with creating a blog for fiction. Hardly anybody will end up looking at it to begin with. You'll spend a long time doing it before you get any kind of results whatsoever. You might have the odd lucky post here or there that takes off, but I'd expect to be doing it for at least a year before getting any significant results. Obviously, if you've been doing it for 9 months and you've got nobody reading your blog, then something's going wrong. And you should be seeing some growth, but don't expect like 1 million followers on week 2. expect it to take a fair amount of time to build up that following. Comes on to the fourth point. It is a fair amount of work. You are basically trading your time spent on this blog or podcast to save on the cost of advertising your book. Try and learn a bit about SEO and social media marketing, as they are by far the best ways to get people onto your blog in the first place. Go back and listen to my interview with Jeff C. about Pinterest. Or listen to my show about building up Twitter followers. And make the effort to post out links to your content onto those platforms so that people can find out about your show. This comes on to the next piece of advice. Be consistent. If you post more than normal, people will get fed up and maybe not be able to keep up with you. So they'll stop following your blog or podcast. And if you post too little or rarely, then people are likely to forget about your content. At the very least, try and be like this show. You'll have noticed I do short shows if for some reason I've got something on or I'm not really feeling it. Some of those short shows have actually been surprisingly good considering how hard they were for me to do for those weeks where I was like, I can't think of anything to do. I haven't got time. I've got something else going on. I'm going away. I've got to do some shows in advance. I wouldn't suggest doing the short show or short blog post idea, but it's certainly better than nothing because at least you keep that consistency going. For your own mental benefit, if you just make sure you will do something for your blog or podcast every week or every day if you're very, very keen, or at least every month. If you keep that regular cadence going, people will be looking forward to you posting something at that time, on that day of the week. Consistency is much more important for blogging than people think. Next piece of advice I use is a bit controversial, and I haven't really started doing it properly myself yet. You'll hear a lot of people say, don't build your house on rented land. What this rather weird analogy is going on about is that some people are now starting to write posts on sites like Medium, LinkedIn Publisher, and on Facebook. There's a Facebook Notes where you can write your content directly onto Facebook. So rather than hosting on your own website, you write onto one of these platforms directly. The advantages of these other platforms is they naturally get way more viewers than your own site will, unless you promote it very well using SEO and social media marketing. They've got an inbuilt promotion engines inside all of them. So Facebook will promote your content that you put onto their site. Like LinkedIn will show a little pop-up on anybody who's connected to you on LinkedIn. There's been a lot of advice that you shouldn't use these sites because they can change the rules at any time, which is completely true. However, I feel that you should use these platforms and your own site. Provide some of the best content, make it available on those sites, and then put teasers back to your own site so that people who will discover your posts on there can then track you back to your own website. I think really most of us need to do this now, and I've not been doing it. I'm probably going to start posting much more actively on LinkedIn, some self-publishing links based on this show. I think this is a great way to build up your own audience. It's going to take a bit of extra work repurposing some of your blog posts because you don't want to paste exact copy for SEO reasons. But I think most of us have got enough time to be able to post the occasional article on sites like Medium and LinkedIn Publisher. And this is a great way to try and build up a bigger audience for your own site. Probably help you if you do it on LinkedIn to actually build up your LinkedIn following as well. So I think you need to have both rented land and your own site. Next piece of advice I would give is to spend time on design of your images, audio intros or video cover images. I found with this show that by spending just a bit more time, rather than just slapping the logo on and changing the text on my items on my website, that it's actually improved the amount of people coming to my site, certainly from Pinterest. So give time to get the design of your images for your blog posts or spend time on the audio of your podcast. Don't just slap it up there and forget about it. Spend time using sites like Canva to design nice images. It really will make a difference in the end. My last piece of advice is one that everybody tells you to do, which is to collect emails of your readers. This is a way to get the people who are really committed to your site onto a separate list. Now, I do, as those of you who've signed up for my email list will know, after the initial email course, I don't generally send much in the way of emails out. I want to try and start doing a monthly email, maybe set up a separate Facebook group, because it is very important to get those people who are showing interest in your blog into more of a community. This is not about hard selling to these people, but these are people who are much more likely to be interested in the stuff that you're trying to sell, i.e. your fiction books or your course or whatever. So it's a good idea to nurture your email list. Don't be like Tim, be like somebody who actually nurtures an email list. So what do you guys think? Do you think that fiction content marketing is worth a try? I think if you've got the time to be able to do it, and enough time in advance to be able to start building up a fairly good audience, you could even do it before your book is available. So say that you've got a book idea for something about pink purple werewolves. You could start writing your werewolf blog posts for a couple of months beforehand, before you even write the book. You'll then have that little critical mass of followers, hopefully. So by the time you actually release your book, you'll be able to push it into an Amazon chart. And then onto the great path to success and milk and honey. My feeling is that it could work. I know it's a lot of effort though. But if you haven't got a lot of money to spend on marketing, this might be a good way to try and build up that following. Talk to you guys next week.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please stop by iTunes and rate and leave a review. This helps make the show more visible. For free resources, show notes, and other helpful content, join the community at beginselfpublishing.com.